Hello friends, welcome to this session. Terraform tutorial, the series of the full Terraform tutorial. So we will completely learn the Terraform, in particular this series of Terraform. So let's start. So what things we are going to cover in this particular session. So we will understand what is Terraform. We will see the different use case for the Terraform. We will understand what's the difference between Terraform and the other existing tool like Ansible, how Terraform works. We will also understand the different Terraform commands. So we will see the what's the basic Terraform command which basically used for the Terraform scripting. So let's start. So what you can expect from the particular session, so you will basically completely get a understanding of the Terraform, how Terraform works, how it can use for particular use cases, and what are the different features and modules of the Terraform. You will also understand how we can create the different resources of AWS using Terraform, and at last you can also understand how the DevOps techniques works using the Terraform. So let's continue. So the feedback section, I'm asking before feedback section just to motivate us, please share your comments, like video, please share your queries also, so we can understand what things are improved, so how we can work on the improvement section. So please do feedback. So let's start. What's a Terraform? So basically Terraform, a tool created by the HashiCorp, and the goal of Terraform is writing code. But this writing code is not for any programming language. This is writing code is for the creating your infrastructure. Just to imagine you are creating the virtual machine in a AWS. So you just log in the AWS and you create the AMI, then you create the EC2 instance. So that's a console based steps you are providing. But if you imagine there could be the hundreds of EC2 instances want to create, so that is hardly impossible through the manual process. So Terraform here helps you to write the script, and through the Terraform you can automate your infrastructure. So you one script can create the thousands of your resources. Terraform is completely open source tool, so you can modify Terraform from the open source. It's a declarative language where you don't have to define how to work. You simply have to define what resource you want to create. It's again gives the flexibility just because of its is a code language where you can take the version control system like the Git, and you can take a different benefits of the version control system. So let's take an example of the infrastructure provisioning. So let's try to understand with the small example here. So here we basically have the web application, and I want to deploy this web application and the cloud base. So to deploy my web application, I might need a certain base infrastructure to deploy the application over the cloud. So what kind of the base infrastructure I require? Just to imagine that could be the multiple servers where I need on cloud side. So I want to deploy, and probably each server having the Docker container where I deploy my application. So application might have the caching server, might need the database server also. So this is my base infrastructure required to deploy my web application. So here we understand. So we could require the different infrastructure like basic the network configuration, that's a virtual private cloud configuration, and to see deploy of the application I might need a ECS, that's a elastic container service, or EC2 instance where I deploy my application, that's a virtual machine only. So after that I might need the dependency handling like a Docker system installation and other dependent tool installation. So this could be the required for different component requirement. And apart from this resource creation, I might need the user and the role based configuration, that's a permission management and the security configuration. So these are the base infrastructure required while I need a deployment of my application. So this called basically infrastructure preparation. So I have to deploy a application, and before application deploy I need a infrastructure prepare. And the second portion is the deploy application. So this infrastructure preparation part basically take care by the Terraform. So we will write a script, we can create this infrastructure that we'll see in the next slides. So infrastructure provisioning, that's we are creating the infrastructure provisioning of infrastructure before deploying our application. So application deployment have dependency of the infrastructure. So we provide the infrastructure using the provisioning of infrastructure. So that's a create of VPC, spinning of the several servers that we seen, creating the firewall and group or security policies, and the dependency installation like a Docker. Let's try to understand how these Terraform are differ from the other tool. So basically Terraform it's an infrastructure provisioning tool. The way we have discussed, it will helps to create infrastructure before deploying our application. So basically it create the infrastructure as a code. Terraform can automate any cloud providers. It supports almost all cloud provider supports. And just take an example, AWS, Azure, GCP, DigitalOcean. That could be the many other cloud provider which supported by the Terraform. To see the other side, there's Ansible, SAP, Puppet, having the focusing on automation of installation and the configuration of software. Let me take an example here. So we deploy a application and I need a several configuration after deploying my application. So that's a configuration file and the dependencies, the internal file structure. So kind of maintaining the system in complying in the certain mode. It's a deploying application, so I need the new application deployment post my application deployed. So it's a communication between the two application, installing the updates of software and the other dependencies. So my actual application need the different dependency and handling its own updates. So these are basically used by the Ansible. So they do the automation for the configuration of actual application, where Terraform will helps to create the base infrastructure. So certain tutorials are available in our channel. Please go through this tutorial for more information. To see the Terraform use cases, let's try to understand. So if you see the existing flow, that's creating the of infrastructure, and the second is the updation of infrastructure. Let's try to understand. So in use case, so basically if you see the replication of staging make easy here. Why? Just because of, let's assume that we have the different kind of staging like the dev, QA and prod. So I have to write the script which basically deploy my application in development environment. I have to write a script for the QA and I have to write script for the prod also. But here you can use the same script, just you have to change your variable of the environment. So this makes the replication of staging very easy. So here I want to create the development infrastructure, QA infrastructure and prod infrastructure. Even in the more dig level, so if you see in development I want to deploy in only one region or specific certain region, I can handle it. So same way I can deploy the QA having the different region and the prod having the different. So the one script can handle all this staging, and it's basically replication make to the one stage to another stage. It's easy. So basically single script handle this all cases. So how Terraform help us? It's easy to writing the automation, modification of infrastructure, that's the code of your script is really easy. So if you want to simple, you want to change your instance type, you can simply change your instance type from your script. Replicate the multiple environment which we have discussed, helps to staging environment. Maintain the state of your infrastructure, this is state management. So this will see the next slide. So this is the one of the base use case for the Terraform, where I can maintain the state. So it will not create each time the new resources, it will check the what's my state, and then it will create to the dip of that particular state. Again, it will basically helps to the version control system like a Git. So let's try to understand how Terraform works. So Terraform having the basically a concept of the connection of the cloud provider. It will first connect to your specific cloud provider, then it will create your infrastructure as you define. So we have to choose the providers in our script and we have to pass the providers. So in the Terraform works well, we first understand there is a Terraform core as my first component. What could be the input source for this my Terraform code? So there are the two mainly. That's the Terraform config file where we'll write the code for what infrastructure I want to create. That's a create and configuration of my particular infrastructure. The second part is the state file. So this state file will keep the data, the current state of my infrastructure. So basically it will helps to maintain your state. So once I run my plan, it will identify what needs to be create, modify or destroy. But it will map with my current state and the desired state. So what it will check? It will check your current state, then it will create your infrastructure. If you are running the first time script, it will create your state file. Then you run the same script, it will again check whether the already state file having the updated and the infrastructure is there or not. Then only it will try to create your infrastructure. So there are the lots of Terraform provider. If you see this screen, so you have to write the Terraform as a provider. That's a here I have taken the example is the AWS. So in AWS provider you have to pass a parameter, the region and version. So each provider having its own parameter. If you see the screen, there are the many other providers are listed there. So if you want to see the specific provider, you can go for the provider documents. So Terraform configuration file, if you go with the configuration file, this is a sample configuration file where we have creating the AWS instance. This is a very small file, but this will create your instance. So we have given the instance type and subnet ID. The way you can add some more parameter based on your requirement. And the provider section, if you see, so based on your provider, you have to choose your resources from the Terraform document. So next thing is the Terraform command. So here we will take the example for the Terraform command. So this is my desired state and I am going to use my Terraform command as a refresh. So refresh do the query infrastructure provider to get the current state. So it will simply check your current state of your infrastructure from already created. The plan apply. So plan apply both work the almost same, but plan will basically make your execution plan. It won't create infrastructure. It will just check what infrastructure are going to create or modify. The apply will actually the creation of plan will execute. So it will actually create your resources. The destroy command, it will basically destroy all your Terraform resources basically created using with your Terraform script. So basically this destroy command will destroy all your infrastructure which created by the Terraform script. So this is all about the Terraform overview. We'll go through the in details of the each stage where we will understand how we can install the Terraform, how we can play with the Terraform script in the all the different session. So please like, share, subscribe if you find the something useful in particular session. Thank you.